What is going on, everybody? It is the Going Over Big Time podcast. I am Mike Charlip, and today I am going to do a solo review of AEW Redemption, as well as because I am recording this on Friday after the pay per view, Friday the 31st of July. I'm also going to talk about Dynamite and Collision because Collision was on Thursday this week because they did not want to be on the same night as SummerSlam. So, Dynamite and Collision has already taken place this week. So, I will discuss a lot of the stuff that followed AEW Redemption. With that said, let's just get this out of the way here at the top. This show didn't feel necessary to me. I have talked about in the past with Alan how there's certain times where they don't need to do pay-per-views in the middle of other things. Like we just had Forbidden Door in June, and now we're basically building to All In. So putting a pay-per-view in between Forbidden Door and All In just doesn't feel right because that pay-per-view is going to have a lot of foregone conclusions. And that's not bad per se. You're trying to build to your biggest show of the year, the biggest wrestling show of the year, and you're planting the seeds for all of your upcoming feuds for that show. Um, so I just didn't feel like this show was completely necessary, and neither were some of the matches. Excuse me. Some of the matches just were fine, and that's okay. I absolutely love AEW, but I did not love this show. I loved a lot of the follow up, Pretty much, again, we're going to talk about pretty much all of this here, but the Dynamite that followed, amazing show. The Collision that followed, very good show. So it's just those coming off of this pay per view makes sense, but it's just I don't need this show taking place in between Forbidden Door and All In. I know that it's probably going to become a yearly thing, and we're gonna have to get used to it, right? But it's just weird. It felt off. Um, so we'll talk about everything that took place and everything that followed, and where I think everything is going that we don't have a pretty solid place that it's going. I mean, we talked about our all-in fantasy booking, and it looks like a couple of those are gonna come true. I mean, they seemed like they were going to happen anyway, but again, we will talk about all of that when we get to it. So let's start off talking about Redemption. There was only one pre-show match. Normally, they throw like 3 or 4 pre-show matches together, and usually they have nothing to do with anything. This one actually had stakes to it. It was a championship match, and it was built on a storyline that's been building. Um, the conglomeration have been going back and forth with the demand, and the demand is been having the lethal twist in their corner as like backup. Presumably Ricochet is using them as more backup to entice them to make them think that they're going to be part of the demand. I don't know if that's going to happen, but so the lethal twist get and this went pretty much how I expected, except I expected the demand to win the titles at All In, not before All In. So it feels like the conglomeration as a trio has probably run its course already, and that's fine. But either way, these guys, the trios champs, Orange Cassidy and Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong, all as a group, as the trios champs, defended against the Lethal Twist. This match was fine. The Demand were on commentary. I didn't hate this match. Obviously, everybody in this match is very good. Everybody in this match is a great worker, great wrestler. There was no way that the Lethal Twist were winning. Obviously, we knew where it was going. The Demand were going to win the Trios Championships, which is exactly what they did on Dynamite. The following Dynamite, the Demand won the Trios titles. And I thought it happened sooner. I mean, it should have happened a long time ago. But in this story, I thought it happened sooner than I thought it would. So they won the trios titles on Dynamite in a hell of a match that, the Demand and the Demand should have been the trios champions for a while. I'm fine. I'm happy that they're finally champions as a group. The Gates of Agony specifically finally getting something. Toba Leona and Bishop Khan have been great. They are great workers. They work great together. They work great with Ricochet. The Demand is a great trio. I love this group. They're all great in the ring. Ricochet is amazing at everything that he's doing right now. In the ring, out of the ring, he's good on commentary. But just his character work, his social media, he's great. So it doesn't look like the conglomeration are going to go back to trios for a while. They were pretty upset that they lost, but they're trying to bounce back. And in something that we're going to talk about when we get to a later match, that I have questions about. So the Demand had their first defense on Collision against the Rascals, who are a group that I expect to be trios champions one day. They are also great. And I think that we're going to finally get Sorry, I got muted there for a second. Don't know why. I think we are finally going to get a trios division with care. I mean, I don't really think there needs to be a trios division. There certainly doesn't need to be an ROH 6-man belt and a AEW trios champion. But yeah, I just love the Demand. Loved their match with the Rascals. And I'm excited to see what's next for them as the champions, because it looks like the conglomeration is moving on to something else. And we will talk about that. The other thing that happens on the pre-show is not a match. They promoted that they were going to pay homage to the Rougeau family. The Rougeau family having a very long lineage in wrestling, being from Montreal, where this show took place. Jock and Ray Rougeau are widely regarded as a tag team, and Jock would later go on to be the Mountie. And they were a hell of a tag team, and they just did a whole thing where Matt Menard, who is also from Montreal, came out and let them talk for a little in French and in English, and Jock got booed. Apparently, Jock's reputation is not the best. He's always been a hothead guy, apparently, and he had issues backstage before he came out, or even after, probably. I know there was reports that he almost got kicked out of the show. I don't know if it was after he was on air or not. So they get interrupted by Rocky Romero and nobody else. And he comes in the ring and they just beat him up and knock him out of the ring. I believe Jock slapped him, and then Ray gave him a clothesline, and Matt Menard knocked him out of the ring. And that was it. So this was fine, I guess. It was on the pre-show, so I don't really care. It is what it is. Cool to honor some legends in their home country. It is what it is. So then we went to the main card, and the first match on the main card. And the thing that I love that they did, even though this show is still 5 hours long, even though it started an hour earlier. The pre-show started at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and the main show started at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The whole show ended at like 11:55 Eastern Time. So people were not happy about that, even though they started an hour earlier. If they would have started at 8, the show would have ended at almost 1 a.m. I would cut it down just a little. I love wrestling, but I don't need it to last until 12 or 1 o'clock. Between midnight and 1 o'clock on a Sunday. Especially since I have to go to work the next day. I love if they could cut it down in a whole hour. Not every single one of these matches needed to be 16 minutes or more. Every single match on the main card was between 16 minutes and 26 minutes. The longest match being Kyle Fletcher versus Bandito, and the shortest match on the main card being the Andrade versus Mark Davis. I could have shaved off like 10 minutes to each of these matches. Not exactly like shave off 5 minutes on some of them, 10 minutes on some of the longer ones. They don't all need to be a Broadway. They don't all need to be a half hour long. You can have an amazing match that's 17 minutes long. But yeah, I'm not complaining too much about the length of. I like longer matches, but not every single one of these matches needs to be that long. All right, so the main card starts with the ladder match for a shot at the International Championship. They did the entrances for the participants during the pre-show. Love that. Keep doing that if you're going to have big matches. It's longer, big matches with multiple participants. Keep doing that. Of course, it was Jack Perry, the Beast Mortos, Commander, Mike Bailey, Nick Wayne, El Clon, and the winner would go on to be Mike Bailey, which I think pretty much everybody predicted would happen. One thing AEW, and we've talked about this, I've talked about this, one thing AEW needs to fix is there are people just getting random title shots all the time. Just randomly out of nowhere. At least Mike Bailey earned this one, but he just had a shot at the TNT title. He just had a shot at the national title. Like, can somebody else get a title match? But he earned this one by winning this ladder match, and then he later declared that he will challenge Kyle Fletcher at Grand Slam Mexico, which is taking place next week on Dynamite. This match was a lot of fun. There was a lot of great spots in this match, which is not surprising. All of these guys are pretty athletic for what they do. Nick Wayne is amazing, and he's not even 21 yet. Jack Perry gets better and better. Guys, he's under 30. Beast Mortos is great. Elklon is great. All these guys, great workers. Another problem that I have, every one of the people in this match that lost, except for Beast Mortos and Elklon, got matches for other belts later in the week, or opportunities at other belts later in the week. Commander and Nick Wayne. So Commander challenged Jon Moxley on Wednesday after losing this match to for the Continental title, and Nick Wayne and Jack Perry challenged Andrade on Dynamite for the national title. I mean, you can have an argument for Jack Perry. He never got another shot at the national title after losing it, but all three of these guys lost a match on this show and got title matches on the next Dynamite. That should not be happening. Winners should get title shots. Somebody who's on a winning streak should get a title shot. Yes, I enjoy great matches. I enjoy great wrestling, but I don't just need to see Jon Moxley versus Commander because you can have that match. I would like Jon Moxley defend his belt against somebody who deserves a shot. Commander did not, because Commander does not win matches on Dynamite. He loses on Dynamite a lot. Sure, you can say he wins matches on ROH, even though not a lot of people watch that show, but he just lost this match. And then 3 days later, he's getting a title shot for a different belt. Don't stop doing that. Stop doing that. It's not good. So I love ladder matches, usually. They're usually pretty good. And this one, not very long. This one was about almost 20 minutes, 19 minutes and 40 seconds, which is not on the long side for a ladder match, but this could have been a tight 15. But you know what, AEW loves to have everybody get a shot at something big in the match, like a big spot or something. And yeah, I thought that the right person won here, being that it was in Montreal. I think everybody and their mother predicted that Kyle Fletcher would be defending against Mike Bailey, because Mike Bailey would win this match in Montreal. Just trying to pull up some spots that I remember off the top of my head. So we had Nick Wayne doing a cutter off of a ladder into a table. We had Commander doing his thing, walking the ropes and doing a spaceman plancha onto Nick Wayne on a table. We had Elklon do a stomp onto somebody on a table. There was a lot of tables in this match. A killer-looking cutter on the apron by Nick Wayne to Mike Bailey. At one point, there was a ladder on the stage that Mike Bailey just started climbing, and he got to the top of it and did a moonsault off of it onto the pile. yeah, just a lot of great action here. So yeah, I look forward to Kyle versus Mike Bailey. This will be their third singles match, and it's tied 1-1 right now, which I fully expect Kyle Fletcher to retain. But it's going to be a hell of a match for sure. All right, the next match on the main card is the Young Bucks versus the Death Riders, Jon Moxley and Will Ospreay. So, this match was very, very good. I love this match. I loved everybody in this match. These are four of my favorite wrestlers in the world facing each other in a tag match. And I loved all the story here. So during the match, Nick seems to get banged up. Like he has some kind of concussion or something. And I couldn't tell if this was real or not. People seem to think that it was because apparently he did get checked by the doctor. I thought it was part of the story because obviously he continued working, but he also didn't want to ruin the match. So I think that they obviously, if it was a real injury, and he worked through it, obviously, but he needs to be more careful there for sure. I think that everything that happens after the match is warranted. So there's a lot that happens story wise with Moxley throughout and Will Ospreay throughout the show, but after the match, Mox wants to basically Will Ospreay didn't want to hurt. Well, this is during the match actually. Will Ospreay did not want to hurt Nick Jackson because if Nick Jackson was hurt for real, he didn't want to, if he has a concussion, give him a hidden blade. That's not going to help. So Moxley was like, "Could you just finish the match? What are you doing here?" And it got tense to the point where Ospreay's like, "I'm not doing that," and Nick was really playing up. Like, again, I don't know if he was hurt for real. If he was obvious. He was selling great in this match. I guess if it was real, they made it work, right? But Moxley. So there is a point in this match where the tension gets really high, and Nick is just out, right? Dead in the ring, and Ospreay, again, I said before, Ospreay is like hesitating to do anything because it seems like Nick can't compete. And Matt gets in the ring and covers Nick to prevent it from happening. And Moxley rushes in, throws Matt out of the ring, gives Nick a stomp, then gives Nick multiple paradigm shifts and death riders, but doesn't finish the job and Nick gets too close to the ropes, and that becomes the downfall of the Death Riders in this match, and the Young Bucks win. And Ospreay feels bad, obviously, but he also said he's not going to intentionally hurt anybody. He does not agree with that aspect of what the Death Riders do. And Moxley said he didn't care about losing the tag match. That's just another match. But he can't hesitate in big moments like at All In. Because if you hesitate at All In, you're not going to win the big one, which is great storytelling. And we will talk more about this when we get to the main event, because there is a lot that happens in the main event that adds on to this and to future things that are going on. But this match, great. Again, I don't know if Nick was hurt for real. If he was, he did a hell of a job selling it and preventing himself from getting hurt, because apparently he did get checked and they said he did not have a concussion. So if it was just selling, he did great. And that's not surprising. The Young Bucks are great at wrestling, great at selling. So nobody should be shocked by that. All right. So the next match on the card is the TNT International Championship match. Kyle Fletcher versus Bandito. All right. So the biggest problem I have here, Bandito, and again, this is something we've talked about a lot, something I'm going to talk about again. Bandito has been the ROH World Champion since last April. There was a stretch between December and this May where he did not defend that belt at all. But he has been in championship matches for other belts more than he has defended that belt. And he loses every single time he has a singles championship match for a different belt. This should not be happening. He's challenged for the Continental. He's challenged for the International here. He's challenged for the World title. He's challenged for the TNT title. He's challenged for the National title. He's lost all of those matches. He should not be going for other belts while he is the ROH World Champion. And he should not be losing all of those matches all the time. I do not want to see him have a... And on Dynamite, again, this leads into stuff that has happened already. That we're going to talk about in this show. But on Dynamite, they already set up that he's going for the Trios title, which we will talk about now, I guess. On Dynamite, there was a whole thing with the demand and a whole bunch of people, but Brody King gets involved and he doesn't want anybody. Bandito apparently wasn't there and he left the building, and Hangman Page makes the save. And on Dynamite, Brody basically thanks him. Collision thanks him for that, and Bandito thanks him for that. And they are going to be a trio called the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And they're going to challenge the demand for the trios titles. So Bandito's challenging for another belt, this time in a trio that he will most likely lose. This needs to stop. Bandito needs to win. Bandito needs to lose the ROH World title if he's not going to defend it. Why is he still holding it if he's not going to defend it? This is getting ridiculous, and he's just challenging for other belts all the time, and it doesn't make any sense. With that said, I don't want this to hinder the fact that this match was amazing. This match was amazing. That's not the problem. The problem is that Bandito shouldn't be in it. That's the problem. And they need to stop just putting Bandito in matches because he's amazing at wrestling. I am one of those people. He was on my top 5 wrestlers of the year last year. Who sees that Bandito is one of the best wrestlers in the world. That's not surprising. But all he does is challenge for other belts while being the ROH World Champion, and all he does is lose. Just get the ROH World title on him if you don't want him to have it. There's no reason for him to have it if he's not going to defend it all the time, if he's not focusing on that. He shouldn't be challenging for every other belt if he has that belt already. So, as far as this match goes, it was amazing. Kyle Fletcher and Bandito have great chemistry as expected. Both of them are two of the best wrestlers in the world. Kyle Fletcher is going to be a world champion one day. Kyle Fletcher is going to be the face of this company one day. And there was a lot of great stuff in this match. A brainbuster on the apron that looked nasty. There was a moment where Bandito had Kyle in a full Nelson. And I love this. This is one of my favorite moments of the match. Had Kyle Fletcher in a full Nelson, and Kyle's trying to power out of it. And Bandito shifts his weight like he's going to do a 21 plex, and he basically does a 21 plex dragon suplex. It was amazing. I loved it. There was a point where he went to do a sunset flip off of the apron, but Kyle held on, but Bandito was able to turn that into a powerbomb anyway, and hits a powerbomb off the apron to the floor. Bandito hits a frog splash from the top rope to the floor while Kyle's on the floor. This I hate, but I wish wrestlers would not do this. Every wrestler, I don't care who. Just there was a point where they were both on all fours and they were just headbutting each other straight on. I wish all wrestlers would not do that. The finish of the match. So again, there was just so much. This was the longest match of the night, but and Kyle was just kicking out of everything, and Bandito was kicking out of everything, and Kyle finally won the match after hitting the top rope brainbuster, but he missed the top rope, so it looked even nastier than it should when he actually hits the thing on the top rope on the turnbuckle. But yeah, this match was great. This match was built off of the fact that him and Kyle Fletcher and Kevin Knight are not friends, but they're both in the Don Callis family, and they're basically trying to one up each other. So so Kevin Knight said that he has done everything on his own without help, and that's why he's had the most TNT title defenses. And Kyle Fletcher said that because of Kevin Knight's mouth, he's going to have this match with Bandito without anybody interfering. And that's exactly what happened. So on Dynamite, they had a multi-man match that included most of the conglomeration. Most of the Don Callis family guys taking on Mike Bailey and Bandito and Brody King. And who was on that team? I don't even remember. But yeah, and Kyle Fletcher and Mike Bailey had another backstage promo on Collision to hype up their title match on Grand Slam. And that match is going to be fun, obviously. And again, I still think Kyle Fletcher is going to retain. And that'll close off their best of three, essentially. All right. The next match is very unfortunate. I was hoping that this match would be pretty good because I love both teams. It is a double chain match. The Dogs versus the Bang Bang Gang. Jay White and Juice Robinson taking on Clark Connors and David Finlay. Clark Connors was chained to Juice by the wrist, and Jay White was chained to David Finlay at the wrist. This match was a mess. I don't think these teams really knew how to work well with the chain itself. There was moments that I liked a lot, but there was a lot of just beating up people with the chain. And this match was almost 20 minutes long. And I would have shaved 5 minutes off of this as well because it kind of just dragged. And it got to a point where all they were doing was balling up the chain and hitting each other with it. And I get that that's the point of the match, but it wasn't really that great. There was a scary moment where, and this sucks because Jay White just got back. There was a scary moment where David Finlay hits a dominator on Jay White. And while doing this, it looked like the chain got like wrapped up in their legs or something. So he was unable to hit a clean looking dominator, and Jay White almost landed on his head, on his neck. I'm pretty sure he was able to save it, but Jay White was not on Dynamite or Collision this week. So that is very concerning. I hope it was just a precautionary thing and it's not serious. Obviously, Jay White has had the shittiest luck in AEW with when it comes to injury and just coming back after a 15-month layoff. Hopefully he's fine after that dominator spot. So it seemed to me like the Bang Bang Gang was going to win the match until there was interference by the Death Riders. Of course, the Death Riders and the Dogs are quote unquote friends. I mean, Gabe Kidd is essentially a member of both, so they're affiliated, I guess. And so that's why I think my prediction that I made in our fantasy booking of All In, I think has a chance of coming true, where it's a 10-man tag where all the members of the Bang Bang Gang take on all the members of the Dogs and 2 members of the Death Riders. I still think that can very much happen. But yes. Daniel Garcia and Daniel Garcia and Wheeler Yuta get involved, and that's when Ace Austin and the Guns come out to make the save, and the Dogs use that as a distraction. Marina Shafir gives David Finlay the shillelagh on that note and then hits Juice right in the face with it and gets the pin. And that's that. But yeah, I don't think this is over. Hopefully Jay White is fine. Again, kind of concerning that he wasn't on Dynamite or Collision. But we'll see what happens there. The Dogs and the Bang Bang. Again, like I said, this is not over. The Juice Robinson teamed with on Collision. He had a match. Who did he face on Collision? He teamed with the Guns to take on. There was a match they had on. Juice Robinson said he wanted to have a match on Collision. Hold on, I'm going to find this just for clarity here. I really hope that they can make this work. I love both of these teams. I've wanted this feud. I've been calling for this feud for a while, especially since they're, all of the history between all of these guys. But yeah, I think that they should stay away from and it's crazy because you would think that Jay White and Juice Robinson are a great tag team together. We've seen them have amazing matches as a team. They had one of the best matches ever on Collision against FTR in a 2 out of 3 falls match a few years ago. That match was great. And yeah, I just think that we need to figure out a way. We need to figure out a way to keep the Bang Bang Gang all together. Um, okay, yeah, it was an 8-man tag. I knew it was an 8-man tag. It was Moxley, Claudio, Wheeler, and um, Pac taking on the Guns and Ace Austin and Juice Robinson. That's correct. And that was also a fun match. But yeah, no Jay White there, which I hope he's okay. So we're gonna move on to the next match. And the next match on the card was kind of a surprise, but like I guess maybe not to some. So this was the TBS Championship match of Hikaru Shida defending against Maya World, and Maya World wins. And I was kind of surprised that she won, especially since we've been talking about how I felt like she was going to be the person to beat Athena. But now that she has the TBS championship, I don't want her to do that because I don't want her to win the ROH Women's Championship and end up in a spot like Bandito, where she wins the ROH Women's Championship and then doesn't defend it because she's busy doing other things. And I think that Maya World winning on her birthday, this show took place on her birthday. I think that played a big role in why she won. But again, Maya World has kind of earned her way here. She wasn't supposed to be here. We all know the story. Her and Hyan were not supposed to get signed. They got signed solely because they stepped up in stepping in for Nixon Newell and Miranda Alizé when they didn't want to do a job. And they earned an opportunity there. Then, they're teaming up and she earns a spot in the Owen Cup and gets to the finals to face Mercedes at the pay-per-view at Forbidden Door, has a hell of a match there that people are very upset that Dave Meltzer still hasn't given a rating to. He's rated everything that he's watched except for that. And his excuse is that he hasn't had the time to watch it on television to give it its full gets to give his full opinion on it, which is just hilarious to me. It's just he's trolling the hell out of the fans that care about his ratings. I give Dave the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, I think he's a great historian and great mind when it comes to talking about the psychology of wrestling and the history of wrestling. But this is just funny to me that he's taking forever to give Maya World versus Mercedes a rating. But yeah, Maya World gets here all on her own and becomes a star in that match with Mercedes, and then wins a title here, wins a singles title here, and very happy for her, very happy to see where it takes her as a champion. She's already had her first defense, and against Persephone, which was a great match as well. People are kind of concerned about how AEW are using her. But she's also the CMLL Women's World Champion and spends more time in CMLL than she does in AEW right now. And maybe it's just not the time for Persephone to be doing bigger things in AEW. The time will come, but she's still the CMLL World Champion. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, Maya World winning after so Hikaru Shida had plenty opportunities to win this match because she hit the katana like 4 times. And after the 4th time, Maya was too close to the ropes, which frustrated Hikaru Shida. She could have won after the 2nd katana, or even the 3rd. And her cockiness prevented her from winning, which caused her to distract herself by arguing with the referee. And then Maya got hit a big moonsault and was able to uh, use that to uh, gain the advantage, score a roll up, and win, which is the way that should go. Because Hikaru Shida had no reason to lose that match. She lost the match because she got too cocky against Maya, and Hikaru Shida now holds the shortest title reign of both women's singles championships. And I think that they could have just had somebody else win the TBS championship. Of course, we talked about how they handled the TBS championship after Willow's injury. Not great. And Maya World was in that match. She could have just won that match and kept the belt. Why did Hikaru Shida have to have this super short reign? It is what it is, but this match was fine. The next match on the card was a match that I did not really like. And the reason why I didn't really like it is because it had the same exact formula of every single one of Cope and Cage's tag matches, and that is getting very tired. Every single one of Cope and Cage's tag matches has been one of them gets taken out and takes a nap for a long time, and then the other one has to have a handicap match for like 15 minutes until the other one finally arrives and gets the hot tag, and then they somehow hit a double team and then win. That is what they do all the time. Now I get it. These guys are 50 years old. They're not as spry as they once were. They're not as, it is what it is. But just have a match. Why do we have to do this formula in every match? Literally every match. And sometimes they do that twice, which they did in this match. And I just, don't need that. I like Cage and Cope and Cage, whatever you want to call them. I've always liked them. They're a great tag team, one of the best ever. And they haven't even, got to remember, before they started teaming in AEW, they hadn't teamed on a regular basis in 25 years. That's crazy, but it's true. And they're still widely regarded as one of the best tag teams ever, with that fact involved. But what they're doing with this reign, they're giving random people title shots, like Pac and Claudio, for example, like they did here. Pac and Claudio never earned a title shot. Pac and Claudio were given a title shot because of Cope's affiliation with the Bang Bang Gang, and the Bang Bang Gang and the Dogs and the Death Riders just being closely involved. And then they were like, oh, well, let us face any two members of the Death Riders, whatever. So then they defended against Daniel Garcia and Wheeler Yuta, who would never won a tag match. So why are they getting a tag title shot? And then they defended against Claudio and Pac here, who have also barely ever teamed as a tag. Ever. But there was moments that I liked in this match, obviously, because I like everybody in it, especially Claudio and Pac. But again, they got to stop doing this same formula over and over and over again. And they won with a pop-up spear. That's fine. Cool. And after the match, the Young Bucks come out. And the Young Bucks make it clear that they are going for the tag titles. And then on the screen, they show a graphic of a tag of at All In. The tag titles are on the line. Cope and Cage will defend against the Young Bucks. Now, we all kind of saw this coming, but we've been saying for a while that I think that this is not going to be the final form of this match, right? I still think it's going to be some kind of multi-person ladder match type thing, maybe a TLC, or they can't even call it that. They'll call it a ladder war like we talked about. That includes maybe FTR, and I guess we'll talk about this here. So Dynamite and Collision were both in Detroit. And a certain tag team that we've talked about multiple times became free agents, not just like last week. So on Dynamite, there's no sign of them. Collision opens. The very first thing that happens on Collision is some music plays, and on the screen it says Motor City Machine Guns. And they come out and cut a promo about being home, not only in Detroit, but in AEW, which is where they should have been from the beginning. They shouldn't have gone to that other company. They were never going to use the way they should have been used over there. Sure, they had a great ladder match, the SmackDown after WrestleMania 41. What did they do after that? Absolutely nothing. And then they got released. And now they're in AEW, where tag teams matter, hopefully. They just got to figure out how they're just giving random teams tag title matches, right? So the Motor City Machine Guns are in AEW. And they get physically involved on Collision in the main event with the Demand and all of that. And so part of me doesn't think they'll be in the tag title scene going into All In, and I'm not sure about Cope and Cage versus the Young Bucks being the match. I'm sure that, people want to see that match, yes. And is it big enough to have just that match on All In? Sure. But as we know and are well aware of, the New Day, or whatever they're going to be called, Kofi and Austin Creed, are going to be free agents before All In. They put out a video finally hyping a cartoon that they got made of two unicorns who break out of the circus being that other company. And there's another unicorn with a broken horn watching them and gives them a nod of approval, implying that that's Big E, which is a very emotional moment, I think, for all involved, because Big E has basically said that he's done wrestling and he's happy in the role that he's in WWE, probably never going to leave. But as we all know, Kofi and Creed got told that they needed to take less money or leave the company. They chose to leave the company. And I think that there's still a possibility of at least a triple threat between Creed and Kofi, Cope and Cage, and the Young Bucks. And maybe FTR is involved. Maybe Motor City Machine Guns involved. Maybe they do something else. FTR still has not come back since losing the tag titles. Just on a vacation, I assume. But yeah, I am very happy that Motor City Machine Guns are in AEW. Very excited for the former New Day to be in AEW. And very excited for what's next in the tag team division. Not sure if Cope and Cage versus the Young Bucks is the all-in match, even though they announced it, had a sit-down interview. Not sure still. It could change still. We'll see. Is it big enough to just be the match? Absolutely. But we'll find out. All right. The next match on the pay-per-view was, unfortunately, this no holds barred match between the Painmaker, Chris Jericho, and Tommaso Ciampa. And this match basically went exactly how I expected it to, just like every other Jericho stipulation match. Jericho is an all-timer. We talk about this all the time. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer in every single company, right? But what he's doing is just not working. And I don't like this formula of him feuding with guys that he's never feuded with before, losing to them, and then ultimately winning. He doesn't need to beat them. He never needed to beat Ricochet. He never needed to beat Tommaso Ciampa. What they should be doing is an angle where he can't beat this new crop of talent, and that he starts to second guess himself and wonder if his career really is over. But they chose not to do that. They chose to just do 50-50 booking. And I don't like that, obviously. I don't care for that. I think that it would make more sense for Jericho to just be doing jobs to other guys. Because, as we mentioned, he's a legend who's done everything. There's nothing left for him to do. If he wants to be in AEW, he can be in AEW. He doesn't need to be on every pay-per-view. He doesn't need to be on every Dynamite. He doesn't need to be on every Collision. He can just do stuff here and there. Maybe have a one-off feud once in a while. He doesn't always need to get his win back. He doesn't. That time has passed. He should not be beating Ciampa. He should not be beating Ricochet. Whoever he feuds with next, whoever that is, he should not be beating them. Because those people are more important to the future of AEW than Chris Jericho is. Again, no disrespect to Chris Jericho. He's a wrestler who I have loved my entire fandom of wrestling. As long as I've been a fan of wrestling, I started watching full time in 2000 when I was 10. And he was a big part of that. And I've loved him since then. But that was when he was new to me. That's when he was still very young. He's not that anymore. Obviously, the man is over 50. He does not need to be doing this all the time. And the Painmaker is a horrible gimmick that he just started doing in New Japan as a counter to the Rainmaker. And it just looks stupid. He puts like this clown makeup on his face and makes this giant smile, and acts like it makes him more dangerous. It's like his Demon Balor or something, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's corny. It's too sports entertainment, and I know that that's his bit in AEW. He's been doing that bit in AEW for years now, but it's just silly. It is. And he comes out to Painkiller by Judas Priest, which makes no sense because the gimmick is the Painmaker, and you're coming out to a song called Painkiller. What does that even mean? That's so dumb. And all right, so as far as this match, like, there was just a lot going on. I mean, these guys just, there's tables, fire extinguisher. Jericho gets corny with the fire extinguisher and like shoots it in the air and shoots it all over the place and makes that stupid face. A spot that I liked was when Ciampa did the essentially the angel's wings. I don't remember what he calls it, but he does that off of the apron into a table. That was a cool spot. But yeah, then it just continues to get corny because that's what they do in these Jericho matches. Tommaso Ciampa pulls out some hockey sticks and then puts on a Boston Bruins jersey because he's from Boston. And he pulls out a trash can. He also puts on a hockey helmet, pulls out a trash can, and inside is a stuffed doll of the Montreal Canadiens mascot, Youppi. Youppi was originally a mascot of the Montreal Expos. And when the Montreal Expos went under, well, they didn't go under, they moved to Washington. They moved to Washington, D.C. and became the Nationals. But when that happened, the Canadiens adopted the mascot, Youppi. And so Tommaso Ciampa pulls out a stuffed doll of Youppi and starts beating it up and goes to pin the doll and makes the ref count, which is, again, so freaking corny. And this is not what I want Tommaso Ciampa doing. And then Jericho hits him with a trash can, puts the trash can on his head and hits it with the hockey stick. And then he saves the doll and puts it in the corner and pets it and tries to pose with it like it's his friend. It's so silly. And I get that they're silly in wrestling, right? And then Jericho does that thing where he pulls out a bag and you think it's just going to be thumbtacks, but it's always some kind of gimmicky thing to go along with the city that they're in. And this time he pulls out hockey sticks with hockey pucks with thumbtacks on them. Now, sure, that probably hurts a lot. Hockey pucks are probably not fun to land on, and thumbtacks never feel good. You could have just did that. But yeah, I mean, there was also a callback to their match at Beach Break where Jericho pulled out a different bag and it had sand in it, and he threw the sand at Ciampa. At least that was a callback. That's acceptable, right? Jericho brings out a barbed wire baseball bat. Tommaso Ciampa ends up using it on him. Jericho pulls out a barbed wire table, hits like a Death Valley driver off of it. There's a pen, and he starts stabbing Ciampa in the head with it. A low blow, all of this stuff. And then Jericho, after Tommaso Ciampa pulls out a drill, Chris Jericho, for some reason, I guess just because he has face paint on, does a poison mist and then takes the drill and puts it in the head of Tommaso Ciampa and wins. Well, not even before that. At one point, Tommaso Ciampa brought out a knee pad that had thumbtacks on it. Presumably to, hit his running knee with it on. But he never got to use it, and Jericho ends up using it and puts it on his elbow and hits the Judas effect. I wish he would stop doing that move because Andrade does it better, and he should not do it. And then that's when he starts using the drill on Ciampa. And I don't know if there was a visual tap out or I didn't see a tap out, but Ciampa gets the drill to the head and just starts screaming. And then the ref calls for the bell. So I don't know if there was a vocal tap out and I didn't hear it, but I certainly didn't see a visual one. The bell just rings and Jericho wins. And I really hope that this feud is over. Because, man. All right. We'll see what happens. Ciampa just had some bounce back matches. He had a bounce back match on Collision that he won against Nick Comoroto. No sign of Jericho on either show. So, don't know what's going on with them. I have an idea what's going on with Ciampa, but doesn't look like. So, they announced the Casino Gauntlet is happening once again at All In. Ciampa doesn't want any other title. He wants the world title. So he is going to enter a contenders match for the Casino Gauntlet to be the number one entrant. Because as we know in the Casino Gauntlet, the earlier number is what you want, because if you get a later number, you might not even enter the match. And he is going to be facing Andrade and there's one other competitor who's escaping me right now for the number one spot at Grand Slam Mexico. So we'll see what happens. All right, let's talk about this. There was a really weird segment, and again, this I don't know what it was supposed to be, but there was a interview segment where Mick Foley is now doing interviews on AEW pretty frequently, as long as he travels. But he did an interview with the Divine Dominion. And he basically asked them, "You've beaten everybody." They're like, "Oh, we've beaten everybody. There is nobody else." And he says, "Well, there is somebody that you haven't beaten, and that's the Brawling Birds." And they basically said that the Brawling Birds are no concern to them, and that Mick Foley should do what everybody else does and bow down. And I think Mick Foley misheard, because then he's sitting in a chair and he just starts barking and does this for a couple of minutes, and it was very strange, to a point where everybody was kind of confused about what was happening. Social media was very confused about it, for sure. Alan was very confused about it. We talked about it. And Mick Foley explained himself, and he was like, "Oh, she said bow down. I thought she said bow wow." I fully believe that he might actually think that's what she said, because this was cringe. I love Mick Foley. I love the Divine Dominion. This was weird. But yeah, they're planting the seeds for that match. It's happening, I think. We've talked about it a lot. It's finally going to happen at All In London. Jamie Hayter will finally get her moment at All In that she never got in London. Brawling Birds, her and Alex Windsor. Windsor and Ospreay going to win a title on the same night. Blah, blah, blah. It's going to be a lot of fun. And they're already planting seeds for that, which we will talk more about with the Women's Championship match. All right, the next match is the National Championship match between Andrade and Mark Davis. Andrade basically is done with the Don Callis family and being held back to get not to get his world title, and he wants the world title. He wanted it off of MJF, but he still wants MJF at some point. I think there's a very good possibility of Andrade facing MJF at All In. But this match was a lot of fun. I like this match. This match made sense to me that it was happening. I really think that it's weird that Andrade settled for this belt when he's been saying that he wants the world title, right? Especially since we just talked about like how Ciampa said on Dynamite that he doesn't want any other belt. He just wants the world title. It's fine that I mean, it's cool that Andrade won a singles title. I want him to focus on that title now. And I don't want him challenging for the world title as long as he has another belt. Sure, I want him to be a world champion one day. I think he will be a world champion one day in AEW. I predict that he might be one of the next two champions after Will Ospreay. But yeah, I like this match a lot. Mark Davis has really just been killing it. He's really starting to grow on me. as a singles, even though I really like him and Jake Doyle as a team. But yeah, I think that him winning here was very predictable. I will say, I don't think Andrade needs to stop the momentum of every single match to take a picture with a planted female wrestler in the crowd. I get that it's part of the gimmick. He has new music now where he's, a real Latin man, and the How You Know is really over and everybody loves it. I love it. How You Know is it. The fact that he got something over that he said once in his first ever AEW run and it's just stuck is crazy. But it's finally the fact that Andrade is finally over to the level that he should have been for years, and people are finally seeing that he is as good as everybody has been saying since the Johnny Gargano match in NXT, and it's crazy that it took this long. But I do believe that Andrade will be a world champion one day in AEW. I do believe that him getting every title in AEW is a possibility one day, because he is that good, he is that over, and I think he will stay over. He's going to be a killer babyface. He is a killer babyface. There was a lot of stuff that happened in this match that was pretty good. But yeah, a moonsault to the outside. Andrade, I mentioned, just needs to do that. That back elbow as a setup to the DM is so cool. He's great, and I am very happy for him to finally be on this run. So we'll see what happens. He, as we talked about, declared for the Casino Gauntlet. So maybe he won't have a match with MJF at All In. Maybe MJF is in the Gauntlet again. I don't know. We'll see, but it looks like Andrade will be in the Gauntlet because he's going to be competing for that number one entrant at Grand Slam Mexico, which I presume he will win because it's in Mexico. But we will see. All right. The next match was the co-main event, the AEW Women's World Championship. Willow Nightingale versus Tekla. And as we all expected, Willow Nightingale is your AEW Women's World Champion. And they solidified that the match is on Mercedes versus Willow at All In for the World Championship. I'm still very up in the air about who wins this match. I'm not actually 100% that Mercedes wins, because I don't think it's fair that Willow finally gets here and has to lose the belt after a month. And I think that it makes the most sense for Mercedes to be the Women's World Champion when she's finally at her all-time low and has sympathy from the fans. She doesn't need the world title right now, but it would help, I guess, the division to bolster it. But I think Willow has proven that she is one of the most over baby faces in all of wrestling today. She is more over than Bayley was in NXT. That's that's great. Like, nobody dislikes Willow. Nobody. She's amazing at everything. She cut an amazing promo celebrating her win on Dynamite that was interrupted by Mercedes. And they had the back and forth and the pie facing and the slapping and the signing of the contract. And the thing I did not like about this match with Tekla was the finish. The finish was a sunset flip. Oh, no, a backslide. A backslide is not a very convincing pin anyway, but the fact that that's what beat Tekla after she's beaten some of the biggest names in this division, Chris Statlander, Tony Storm. Uh, she's beaten Starlight Kid from Stardom. She's beaten everybody, and she loses to a backslide after a 17-minute match. Why is that what puts her down? I don't understand that at all. But there was a lot of great back and forth in this match. Everybody looked great here. Willow looked great, as she always does. Tekla looked great because she just kills it every single time. The Sisters of Sin tried to get involved to save Tekla's title. But that was thwarted, and Willow, of course, went after, I believe it was Sky who got involved mostly. But Sky would get a power bomb on the outside and take care of her. And Willow would win. But yeah, like I said, that finish was questionable. Why is a finish? Why is it being finished by a backslide? That I don't get. But yeah, I'm very happy that Willow is the champion. Fully expected it, especially after everything that they've had to change with this women's division. And Mercedes versus Willow is the match you expect at All In, especially everything that they've been through, even before AEW. But yeah, last December, she ended the TBS title reign, the longest TBS title reign of all time. And Mercedes even said in their promo on the Dynamite where they signed the contract that every single time something good happens to Mercedes, Willow is there to ruin it. Willow is like the bane of her existence. Willow is the person that ruins everything for her, and she finally wants to ruin something for Willow and be the person that ends her first world title reign. That's why I'm very concerned. That's why I'm not sure about that happening. I'm not sure. It could most definitely happen. I think it could go either way. But I'm excited for that match. I will never get tired of seeing Mercedes versus Willow, especially when it's spread out as much as it is. It doesn't happen very frequently. It happens enough that it's still fresh, and they can always do something different. They always do something different, and it's always fun. So we will see what happens there. So that brings us to the main event. Oh, let's talk about also, they announced that Willow will be teaming with the Brawling Birds to take on Mercedes and the Divine Dominion at Grand Slam Mexico. So you got the challengers of both belts and the champions of both belts in a trios match. That should be fun. And we'll see what happens there. Excuse me. We'll see what happens with Willow and Mercedes. I'm very excited for the build to that match. All right. We're at the main event. And I'm going to talk about it again. This is going to continue to be a thing until it stops. And we've already talked about it multiple times in this show alone. Champions challenging other champions. I thought that there was a possibility that Darby could have beaten Kevin Knight for the TNT title before this match. But then you got Kevin Knight coming off of a loss challenging for a world title. So that doesn't help either. So that didn't happen. So you just had the TNT champion challenging for the world title on this show instead of him defending his belt. Even though Kevin Knight didn't really earn a title shot against Kenny Omega, he was just promised one by MJF. And it didn't happen because MJF is no longer the champion. So Kevin Knight should not be challenging Kenny Omega. But despite that, this match was very, very good. I'm not surprised that this match was very, very good. Kenny Omega is Kenny Omega. And Kevin Knight is going to be one of those guys alongside Kyle Fletcher and, Jack Perry, all those guys that are on the way up that are going to be the future of this company. He's going to be one of those people. He's got all the tools. I just don't like him challenging for the world title while he's the TNT champion. I can't stand that. It keeps happening. Why does it keep happening? Why? Why is Tony Khan in love with his minor champions challenging his major champion? Why can't we just build up credible challengers for every belt? Now, I get that there's an issue with that because there are too many of them. That's why the national title and the continental title should not exist. That's why this happens all the time. These guys, they think that it's only important if you win a belt, if you're challenged for a belt, and that you can't have credible stories without a belt. That's obviously not true, but that's why the Continental title does not need to exist. Speaking of the Continental title, let's talk about this first, since I didn't mention it. Jon Moxley mentioned on Dynamite, before it was even announced, that they're having a Continental Cup. First of all, you can't even call it the C2 because we already have one of those. So what are you supposed to call it? Just call it the Continental Cup, I guess. The CC, it's the C2 and the CC are the same thing. But why do we have to have multiple tournaments for the Continental Championship? Whatever. It's a single elimination 16-man tournament where Jon Moxley will be in the tournament defending his belt in every match. Wow. If only another company had done that in the Queen of the Ring tournament. What a crazy idea. Jon Moxley will be defending his title in every match that he has, and the winner of the tournament will be crowned the Continental Champion, which is basically the exact result of the Continental Classic. It's just not round robin this time, and the winner gets a trophy that looks like a World Cup trophy, or a trophy that you win in like a golf tournament or something. Regardless of that, all three members of the previous trios champions, Kyle O'Reilly, Orange Cassidy, and Roderick Strong, have all entered the tournament. And Jon Moxley is in it. And they said that there was 5 entrants, but I don't recall somebody else who entered. So, I think my prediction of Swerve versus Moxley is still very possible, because I think Swerve is going to be in this tournament. Swerve needs something to do going into All In, and I think this is perfect. I still don't think the Continental Championship needs to exist, but I digress. I'm not going to harp on that again. We harp on it enough here. Oh, excuse me again. Now, as for this match, Kenny Omega and Kevin Knight absolutely killed it. That's no surprise, right? This match was amazing. What I loved about this match was that Kenny was basically toying with Kevin the entire match. He's like, you don't deserve to be here. You should not be here. You are not on my level yet. This is not your time. And Kenny was right. It's not time for Kevin Knight to be here, but it will be at some point. And Kenny doing that is just perfect, because he's basically saying what we've all been saying. It's like, yes, Kevin Knight is the future, and he's great now, but he's not Kenny Omega great yet. Will he be Kenny Omega great? Is very possible. And I think that there's a good shot of it, because Kevin Knight is great, but not Kenny Omega great. And there was a lot of great Kenny Omega stuff in this match. Snapdragons on the apron, snapdragons on the barricade. Snapdragon's in the ring. V triggers everywhere. Kenny Omega just slapping Kevin Knight, being like, "You will learn your lesson here, and you're gonna remember this because I told you you weren't ready," and all of that stuff, and that's fine. I like that. I like Kenny Omega just getting like 90% of the offense in a 18-minute match. 25. Sorry. This is the second longest match on the entire show. 25 minutes. But yeah, I thought that this was good. This was great. This was probably the best match on the show. Besides Kyle and Bandito, which could have been a little shorter. But yes, this match was very good. This one, there was points where it dragged. I don't think this needed to be 25 minutes either. This could have been 17 minutes. This could have been 16 minutes, and you could have got all the points across that you wanted to, which they did, right? But yes, Kenny Omega would retain, of course, as we expected he would. But Kevin Knight is just like, he's been doing that coast to coast to a Tree of Woe opponent more frequently, and I love that move. And yeah, Kenny would finally get the victory after hitting the one-winged angel. Finally, of course, nobody kicks out of it, and gets the win. And after the match, Kenny is attacked by the Death Riders. All of the Death Riders, minus Will Ospreay. And Kenny is just getting beaten, battered by the Death Riders, and they're doing it to help Will Ospreay, but they're also doing it to hurt Kenny Omega to make things easier for Will Ospreay. But Will Ospreay doesn't want that. So they go to do the chair stomp that they've basically done to everybody. They did it to Will. And Will Ospreay comes out and prevents it from happening. And he's like, I don't want this. I don't want to win this way. I want him at his best. I want everything he's going to throw at me, blah, blah, blah. And Wheeler Yuta does this thing that people obviously caught it. They saw it. This is what happened when Pac did this to him. And remember, Pac was hugging Wheeler Yuta when they put the plastic bag on Bryan Danielson, and he was conflicted. And they tried to do a similar thing here, where Wheeler Yuta was hugging Will Ospreay, and in the process of doing that, Claudio was going to stomp the chair. And Will Ospreay knew that this is what was happening, and he hits a hidden blade on Claudio before he can hit the stomp, and takes the chair and starts swinging it around. So Jon Moxley gets back in the ring, and he's basically telling them, like, what kind of man do you want to be? Are you with us? Are you against us? You need to do this to get ahead. And he hands Ospreay the plastic bag, the same plastic bag that we mentioned, similar plastic bag that we mentioned that he used on Bryan Danielson and was going to try to use on Hangman, but it was stopped by Bryan Danielson, etc. We all know what happened, right? And then Will Ospreay rips up the bag, and he's like, I'm not doing that. And he sends all of the Death Riders flying and hits a hidden blade on Pac. And Jon Moxley is not happy with that. And Will Ospreay removes the Death Riders patch from his clothes, his elbow pad, and throws it away and says he's done. And he picks up the world title and hands it to Kenny Omega, who's still gathering his thoughts. And he's like, it's gonna be you and me, 1-on-1 for this, and I want you at your best. And Omega obliges, and then while they are celebrating, Kenny Omega sneaks up behind Will Ospreay while he's on the top rope and hits a one-wing angel. And everybody's like, what's Kenny doing? Why is he doing this? And Kenny would explain why he did this on Dynamite. He did this because, yes, he also wants to face Will Ospreay at his best. But the fact that Will Ospreay even thought about putting the plastic bag on him was everything he needed to know about the kind of person that Will Ospreay is. Will Ospreay made Kenny Omega feel bad about everything that's happened to Kenny Omega recently. When Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay had a backstage where Ospreay told him basically that that he, was disappointed in him for losing the first time to MJF. And it was great stuff. It was a great promo that they had to to close Dynamite on Wednesday. And it just got very emotional and very and this is not a heel turn. This was not a Kenny Omega heel turn. Yes, he's going to get booed in London because it's Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay is going to be like a god at All In. Nobody's going to be cheering for Kenny Omega at All In. That's solely because he's facing Will Ospreay. And they said everything they needed to say there, and there's still a build to this match, obviously. We still are a month out. And I'm very excited for all of this. I love this promo that they did on Dynamite where they got emotional and started shoving each other and, almost hitting hidden blades and everything. And Kenny Omega they both want to face their best opponent, be at their best at All In. And obviously we've been predicting this match for a while. We've known this match was happening, I think, when they started planting all of those seeds of them having those backstage segments that Kenny ended up using as fuel to get there. Everything that Will Ospreay said to him made him feel a certain way about getting there. And I think that there's no way that Will Ospreay does not win at All In, right? I mean, I've seen people online that have said, hey, maybe Kenny wins, maybe Kenny retains, but you can't. This has to be Will Ospreay's crowning moment. It has to be. I think that there's still a shot that Kenny Omega can be world champion again. And yes, he's got more years behind him than he does ahead of him. And that's going to happen to everybody, right? But Will Ospreay needs to win it All In to solidify that he is the next. And I mean, it's already the case, right? He is the next big face of AEW. He is a star. He is a face of AEW already. But this, like, the fact that he said to Kenny Omega that, it was like, it looked like you've given up on who you are, and Kenny using that as the fuel to say, like, once he did win the title, does it look like I gave up, right? And the Death Riders, of course, are still like, what's going on with why did Will do what he did? And he told them, I am very thankful for what you did for me to prepare me for this, but I am not going to stoop to that level to get the belt. I do not want Kenny Omega hurt before I can beat him for the belt. I'm not going to stoop that low, and I don't need you guys to get there. So he's no longer in the Death Riders, which I think is fine. He doesn't need to be. My prediction of last show where we talked about him possibly usurping the Death Riders from Jon Moxley, I don't think is going to happen now, but I would enjoy that if it did. He ended up when he had that backstage with the Death Riders, Daniel Garcia tried to walk up to him like they were still bros, and he gave Daniel Garcia a hidden blade, and then they had a match on Collision, which of course Will Ospreay won. So the Death Riders are still, in the background on the Will Ospreay stuff. I'm sure, like, a lot of what Will Ospreay has heard from Moxley is going to play a role, and it's played a role in how Kenny felt in that promo. After everything that happened last year with Hangman, and even Hangman went up to Ospreay on Dynamite and was like, if you need somebody, I'm here. And he's like, I can't even trust Kenny Omega, and I'm sorry, but because of that, I can't trust you. Even though there's really not been a lot of affiliation between Kenny Omega and Hangman recently, they're always going to be affiliated, I guess. And yeah, Hangman going in another direction, of course, and Will needs to do it on his own. He has nobody else. He doesn't have Swerve. He doesn't have the Death Riders. He doesn't have the United Empire. He could still have the United Empire, but we will see what happens there. But I am very excited for both women's and men's world championship matches that are set in stone here. Again, as I said at the top, and this is probably the most that I've vented / complained about an AEW show, just because I felt like this show didn't need to happen. I felt like this show was a placeholder show, like just to say, like, hey, we got a July pay-per-view now. And that was not needed, right? But everything that followed, and I'm sure Grand Slam Mexico will be great. Like I said, Dynamite, great. Collision was great. New people are here. The Motor City Machine Guns. We got the New Day on the way. There's a lot to be excited about in AEW. A lot. And I obviously am very much so looking forward to All In. It's the show that I look the most forward to all year as far as being a wrestling fan. And I'm very excited for all of that. And I hope that you enjoyed me talking for almost 2 hours about AEW and AEW Redemption. That is going to do it for me here. Make sure to go to our linktree / Going Over Big Time podcast, where it has all the ways for you to support us, to follow us on social media, to watch and listen to this podcast. It has social media for me, for Alan, for the podcast itself. The podcast is now on Twitter / X, Instagram, Blue Sky, Facebook, and of course YouTube. And follow me for my opinions on stuff. Follow Alan for his opinions on stuff. But yeah, we will see what is to come next for AEW in the build. We'll see who's going to be in the Casino Gauntlet. We'll see who's going to be in the Continental Cup. And, Nigel McGuinness was the other person that declared for the Continental Cup, because, of course, it is in London. That was the name I could not remember. And there it is, right at the end. Thank you guys very much for listening, for watching. And I hope that everybody enjoys the wrestling that they want to enjoy. And that is going to do it for me. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.